Transgenerational inheritance and epigenetics.
If you look at pretty much any of the major diseases, the increase over the past 20 or 30 years is so dramatic. In many of them, it's a 10-fold increase. For autism, it was 15 years, 10-fold increase. I'm sorry, there's no genetic mechanism known that could explain that phenomena. It has to be induced by the environment. If you have identical twins that have essentially the same genetics, allow them to grow up in different regions, guess what? They develop different diseases. If it was all genetics, they should have the same diseases. There's hundreds and hundreds of environmental factors that are known to promote or be associated with disease. The vast majority of environmental factors cannot change DNA sequence. They're not mutagens. So how is it an early life exposure promotes a later life event?
Research at my laboratory and others, mainly on rats and mice, has found that certain pollutants can induce epigenetic modifications that cause disease and reproductive problems, all without changing the sequence of the animal's DNA. When such epimutations occur in the cells that give rise to eggs and sperm, they can apparently become fixed in place and then transmitted along with any resulting health risks. Epigenetics is defined as molecular factors and processes around DNA that regulate genome activity.
So epigenetics are these small molecular factors around the DNA that regulates how the DNA functions, what genes are on and off. But it does this completely independent of DNA sequence. And so it's these molecular factors around DNA that regulate how it works, what genes are on and off, but it's independent of DNA sequence. And when a cell divides into two daughter cells, not only does it replicate its DNA, but it also replicates its epigenetics so that it keeps that maintains that cell identity. So this is what epigenetics is. So
Looking at the term epigenetic transgenerational inheritance, we can see that epigenetic refers to material that is in and around the DNA. Transgenerational means across multiple generations, and inheritance, of course, means something that's passed down, in this case, mutations. So we have this belief that DNA cannot pass down mutations. The information in our article did not conflict with that. It just added that there's material in and around DNA that is replicated during the DNA replication. So we have these pollutants and other environmental factors like stress that can cause mutations in this epigenetic material. So when this epigenetic material is replicated during the DNA process, in other words, environmental factors that you are exposed to may not only affect you, This is relevant to social workers for a lot of reasons, but largely because the populations that we serve are the populations experiencing these problems that we were talking about associated with these mutations, problems like mental illness and behavioral issues. Multiple studies have been done on epigenetics as it relates to trauma, and it's really interesting and really concerning that the research presented in this article was not very optimistic about future generations and the